So there was Joseph yet again in trouble, having to pray, "Oh Lord, please help me." Now, Joseph still had the gift of prayer. Joseph still had the gift of dreams. Now, Joseph was in prison again. But he quickly found that lots of people in prison and jail had dreams. And they recognized Joseph for having a gift of interpreting dreams. So, again, there were two prisoners who came towards him and said, "We have these dreams." And Joseph interpreted those dreams because they both worked for Pharaoh, the king, in different areas. Now, he interpreted the dreams and he said, "Look, one of your dreams is not good and it's not going to bode too well for you. But one of you, the other dream is going to be extremely happy for you. And as long as you don't hurt me, I will tell you what the dream means." And they said, "We won't hurt you. Whatever will be, will be." So I interpreted the dreams. Now, one of them was released back and worked for the king. And the other one wasn't so lucky. He had to be put in a place that wasn't nice at all. So Joseph, who had this gift, interpreting these dreams. Now, one day, this person who got released from the prison heard that the king had lots of dreams and he couldn't, his normal sorcerers and wizards couldn't interpret these dreams. So Potiphar and the prisoner came together and said, "Look, we know that Joseph, who's in the prison, knows how to interpret dreams, and these other people cannot interpret these dreams, this dream of the pharaohs, the great interpreters." So they told King Pharaoh about Joseph. The king says, "Release this person from my prison. Go get him. We'll see." So they brought Joseph. And Joseph said, "Oh, king. Oh, Pharaoh. How can I help you?" Joseph being glad to be out of prison. The Pharaoh said, "I've had this very strange dream. There were cows that were very skinny. And there were cows that were very fat. And this horrible dream is, did you know the thin ones ate the fat ones, but they were thinner than what they were when they started?" And Joseph thought, "What am I going to do now? I need to pray to my God to ask for guidance." So the next day, Joseph went back to Pharaoh and said, "My God has told me exactly what your dream means. Now listen carefully. You are going to have 7 years of good harvest. Then after this wonderful, bountiful years, you're going to have 7 years of severe drought and famine." And the Pharaoh thought, "Oh gosh, what am I going to do?" So the Pharaoh said, if this dream is true, I'm going to put you in charge of all the storehouses because I know you'll know what to do. Now, Joseph was extremely happy. He was again brought out from prison. He had a very important job to oversee Pharaoh's, the king's, grain and storehouses. So the first thing that Joseph did was to get them to build huge barns because he knew there was going to be 7 years. of good harvest. So he knew he had to build lots of barns and storehouses to store all the grain. For he knew that there was going to be 7 years of famine. And he knew that everyone in the neighbouring countries would come to Egypt to buy grain to feed themselves. So in the good times, in those 7 years, Joseph was very good. And the people laughed. And they said, why is he building and storing all this grain? But they knew they had to do what the king's overseer, the boss, the manager, had told them. They kept on stacking up the grain and storing it. And they ate a little bit, but they stored the majority of it. Now, they then became 7 years of famine. And it was really, really bad. People were starving all over the place. And all the neighbouring countries knew that Egypt has stored lots of grain. Now, the people in Egypt, they wasn't hungry, but all the other countries were. Now, Joseph and his brothers, now, because Joseph now had fine clothes, lived in a wonderful place, and it was over all the grain and storehouses. Now, Jacob sent Joseph's brothers off to Egypt to get and buy some grain. Now, they loaded up their donkeys with the money to go and buy grain for their family to bring back to Jacob, their father. Now, the brothers didn't know that Joseph had risen to this high position. Now, as they presented themselves before Joseph, they didn't know it was Joseph. They just saw this man with all these raiments looking fine, and they daren't look up at him. And they begged and asked for grain to buy so they could take back to their father to feed their families. Joseph recognized them immediately, but he didn't say anything. He said, He started to quiz them. Now the brother thought, why is this person asking these questions? But they didn't ask him. Joseph said, how many are there in your family? They said, we have 11 brothers. Really? 11 brothers? Joseph, knowing that he was a 12th one, which they'd beaten and sold. And he said, really? But there's only 10 of you here. I want to see your little brother. So, he sold them the grain, but he called over one of his guards and said, pack their donkeys tight with the grain and put the money back inside the sack that they paid for the grain. Now they went back home and they saw that the money and they had the grain, but they couldn't understand how it got there. They said, never mind. So Jacob was very happy that they had the grain. But a few weeks later, they were all hungry again because the famine was still there and had nothing to eat. But they remembered what the overseer, Joseph, had said to them. There was 11 brothers and he wanted to see the little brother, Benjamin, the next time they came. So the father, Jacob, the brothers told him of what the great overseer had said to them, that they wanted to see, all of them, their little brother, Benjamin, the 11th one. So they all went off to Egypt to buy more grain, but they didn't have as much money this time. So, as they presented themselves again, Joseph, seeing them, said, okay, let's see if my brothers have learned their lesson. So he loaded them up, gave them all the grain, after he'd asked them about their father and how he was he pleased with the grain they had received before. And the brothers replied yes, being very humble. And Joseph said, thank you for bringing your little brother. I can see that, yes, there is indeed 11th one. So you were telling me the truth that there's so many in your family.